Welcome to the Budapest Speed Shop. This is going to be part 4 of the resurrection of this Corvair van. This was sitting in a barn for many years, and I decided to buy it and try to make it run again. So today we're going to actually drive it around, and we're going to do a lot of engine work. So come with me and let's do some repair work on it. I can't believe it. After 6 months, this damn thing is off the rack. So we put fuel in it. I poured a little bit of fuel into the two carburetors, trying to help with picking up the fuel through the empty fuel lines. So I got a can of gas in it, so see what happens next. Again. Again. Okay, stop. I'm gonna put a little bit more fuel in it. Woohoo! Okay, turn it off. That's super exciting. It runs. This makes all kind of noises, but maybe that's normal. I don't know. But I'm gonna put the filters back on and we're gonna try it finally. After about 6 months worth of work, we are ready to go with the van for a drive. Actually, before we go anywhere, I'm gonna put a plate on the front. Now that looks better. So now everybody can tell that's a 63 Corvan. Haha. Well, let's go take it for a spin. This van is great. In second gear right now. The steering wheel is really super light. It's like doesn't have any power steering, but the steering still works really nicely. And then all the shifts, all the gears are going by really easily. And the clutch sometimes shakes a little bit, but most likely because it was sitting for so long. The brakes started to work great. So I'm really pleased with this truck. I'm back in first gear. It shook a little bit, but it's definitely faster than my 3-cylinder Barkas, which has a 2-stroke 3-cylinder water-cooled engine. This one is a 4-stroke obviously and a 6-cylinder air-cooled engine, so big difference in power-wise, but also we're driving it empty. So empty is probably a very different story than if you would load it up with all kind of things, but it works very well. Well, I think I'm gonna need to drive it a little bit on a further distance because it's smoking a little bit, so I think that some of the rings are still stuck after sitting for 30 some years. But it runs very nicely, even though it smokes a little bit. It looks like nothing is leaking, so I can put this cover back on and it's gonna be significantly quieter. I filled it up with oil and everything looks great, except when I removed all the junk from inside and removed this floor Well, I don't know if it's a carpet, but like floor mats. It looks like they're factory mats. I found a lot of rust underneath, so this is not a good news. So I'm probably gonna first wash it out and then dry it, and then I'm gonna probably use a wire brush in the drill and then brush it out, and then treat it with some rust treatment to make sure it doesn't move forward. So I think it's still time to stop this. It's not, I think it's just surface rust, nothing more. And then apparently I found seat belts. They're not all that safe, but they are seat belts. There is the GM sign on it. So I'm gonna start washing it out. I'm gonna wash out this rubber mat on the front, and then I'm gonna just generally clean the inside and wash the outside as well. I'm gonna make an attempt to stop the rust here, so I'm using my Makito and the wire brush, and then looks like I'm getting some progress, and then I'm gonna treat it with some rust converter. I'm using this rust converter on the floor, and it's going really well. This is what it looks like. O'Reilly sells it, Napa sells it, and then at the other end it's already cured, and then keep on going with it. This is what it was, and this is when I put it on, and this is what it's gonna look like. I think I'm gonna spray some spray on it too as well to protect it. Well, this van was sitting in a barn for about 35 or 37 years, and the raccoons had a party on top of it, and sometimes they crapped on it, and then the paint went bad and actually disappeared and started rotting away. So wherever the raccoon poop hit the car, the roof, that's where the paint disappeared, and it started to rust. I mean, seriously rust. So I had my wire brush, I wire brushed it out. So now I'm gonna treat it with, I'm gonna wash it off first, and then I'm gonna treat it with a rust converter, and then I'm gonna put some white paint on it. We're gonna continue with a bunch of brand new parts. Came from Clark's Corvan shop. So I got one of these bearings, which is the bearing for the main hub, you know, what moves the air around. So what I'm planning on doing is to heat it up and take the old one out and then push this one in. The problem is it can't go too deep, so I need to make sure it stays at one position. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut these bolts to size on the one what's on the truck right now, and then or the van right now, and then I'm gonna push these two screws through, or two bolts through, and then when I put it in, they're gonna actually hold it in position with the proper distance away from the housing, and that's how it's gonna sit, cool, and then it's gonna be very cool. But until then, I'm gonna have to put this in the freezer. When I got the van, there was these were on it. These are the carburetor bases. I don't know how it was running, but look at that. It was all cracked, and it was not an even surface. I was trying to sand it up, but it was sort of working, but it was all cracked. So I decided to just buy new ones and replace them. So I got the heat shield, and also I got the seals going on the top and the bottom. I got a new temperature gauge, temperature sending unit. I also bought one of these things, so if I have to take the cylinder heads off, first I'm gonna need to tap the threads. The threads tend to rust on it, and before you remove the nut from the cylinder head, you better cut the thread so it wouldn't hurt the nut as it's coming off from the bolt. And I got a bunch of new seals for the push rod housings, and I can apparently change the seals without taking the cylinder heads off, as long as I do one cylinder at a time. And in order to get those push rod housings off, I got one of these tools from Clark's Corvairs, and then I'm gonna be able to push these housings off with this tool. Then I got a new pedal that was just missing from the truck, and then I have a Clark's belt. It's gonna have like multiple layers, and apparently it's made for this truck. And then I got these new wires, new spark plug wires. I got some vacuum hoses, new valve cover gaskets, and 1/3 of a valve cover. If you look at it, I painted it so it wouldn't rust up while I'm storing it. So we'll need to put this on once I finish changing the tubes, because I need to take the rocker arms off and I need to readjust them. And in order to properly readjust it, the engine has to run. And then with this setup, and then I can put my wrench on and actually adjust each and one of those rocker arms. And then I have the proper bolts to reinstall this bezel, because whoever took it off very conveniently just throw away all the bolts from it. I got several other bolts here. This one is for the hood, what's inside the van, and then I got these bolts for the air covers, all the air cover panels. Also got pulley, which is a dampening pulley. It's supposed to take the shaking out of the belt. So we're gonna start the whole process by putting this one in my freezer in my man cave, and then leave it there for a day or two, and then we're gonna continue on with installing the rest of these parts here. Here's my man cave, and I got a very nice big chill fridge. It's actually a brand new fridge. It just basically dressed up, make it look like an old one. So the bottom of the fridge, I got all kind of essentials for visits, and then here's the freezer, and we got a nice little aviation gin, and then we're just gonna place this one here for a day, so make sure it cools down, and then continue from here. First I'm gonna remove these 4 bolts from this pulley, and then we got access to the bearing down there. It's very simple with an impact wrench like this. I got to help a little bit with a screwdriver to remove this whole thing. Alright, now finally it came off. Here's the pulley, and then here is this nice big aluminum thing, and now we can see the bearing itself. The next thing I want to do is actually, the manual calls for taking this whole thing off and pressing it out, but I think I'm gonna just heat it up around here, take it out. But before we do that, we gotta make those 2 bolts going through, and the positioning bolts, I would say. So that's the next thing. I gotta cut about that much off of this bolt, and then it should be perfect. So I'm gonna leave it a little bit longer so I can cut a little bit off a little bit more, so to position the way it's on right now. So here it is. I got 2 bolts going through, and then they're gonna migrate over to the new part. I'm gonna warm this part up, pull it out, and push the other one in, and it should end up being in the same position as this one. This Chinese thread was so badly made that I had to recut it with the thread cutter, because it was eating up my precision thread inside the new bearing housing. So once this one is done, I can hopefully screw it in by hand into the new bearing housing. I got this little piece from the freezer. It's all looks really cold, and now we're gonna start warming up the unit here, and then pop it up. I got this bearing from the freezer. Now we're gonna start heating it up, and we're gonna try to pop it out. I had absolutely no luck with this thing, so it's not strong enough or not hot enough to get it going. Maybe it's never been changed, I don't know, but I'm gonna take the whole thing off and try to press out that shaft from this. First I remove the bolts at the very end, and then I get in closer and closer to the middle. Try not to bend the whole thing. Looks like the engine is in really good shape. Looking at the pistons and stuff, whatever's sticking out of them. But now I'm gonna have to find another seal for this, so one more thing to order. Now we're gonna raid my buddy's shop, and then he has one of these hydraulic pushers, so we're gonna push this thing out. So we got it all set up. I got the 2 nice big pieces of wood supporting the aluminum housing where it's flat, and then we got a little extension on it, and then we can start pushing it out. It looks like it's just started.
Shouldn't we put something down?
No, don't put your hand there. Let it fall.
Okay. Onto the...
Doesn't matter. There it is.
Uh-oh.
Ha.
Slight.
That's okay. All right, cool. Okay, William was pushing it in. It's still good. Okay, you can go a little more. A little more. More. A little more. That's it. A little more. A little more. That's it.
All right.
I don't like it. We need a little, just a little more. One more. One more. Little more. Little more. Little more. That's it. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. Until we get the new gasket set coming in from Clark's Corvan shop, we're gonna clean up the surfaces. So the first surface I want to clean up is the block. I put a couple of paper towels in it to make sure I don't contaminate the inside of the engine. And I just using this blade, I'm gonna keep taking the old gasket off. Using this Makita and this wire brush, I cleaned up the surface so it's all ready for the new gasket and to put the cover back on. And meanwhile, I'm gonna clean out the mice nest from it a little bit more thoroughly. I cleaned up everything, so now I can put this one back on and also the this other cover back on. I'm gonna wait for the seals until they get here. So we're gonna remove this paper, put those on just to make sure that nothing falls in. And then I'm gonna take the spark plugs out and gonna concentrate on the bottom part of the engine until we get the two seals back in here. The goal is to change the seals on these tubes which contain the push rods. So as I was reading, I'm able to do one cylinder at a time, and I can avoid removing the cylinder head if I do that. So first thing we're gonna do is remove the valve covers, which I nicely put back already, but it is what it is. So first we're gonna take the valve covers off. Now that we have the valve covers off, first we're gonna remove these rocker arm nuts to get access to the push rods. So we just the 5/8, we're just gonna unscrew these nuts first. When you do this, you gotta be very careful to make sure everything goes back to the same position where it was, to the same cylinder. The interesting part in these push rods is that you got a hole on them on the bottom, and there's a hole on the top, but also there's a tiny little hole, which I'm not sure if you can see it there, on the side. So this tiny little hole has a purpose, and it has to be installed at the right position in order to have lubrication for the whole system. This is where you can see the one for the back, and that's for the front, the way I removed them. And then you can see there is a nut on it and a washer. The washer has to go, well, if I would show it to you with the camera, the washer would have to go down this way and then make sure it goes into that rocker arm, and the flat part goes to the nut, obviously. This is how it looks like. And now we're gonna remove these two bolts basically, and then the push rod guides as well. I got these well, I guess I can say them, it's a nut, maybe a bolt / nut off, and there is a seal what comes into play up there, and if you see, those seals needs to be removed from inside the hole. And then now that we have this off, we're gonna have to use my handy little tool I got from Clark's Corvan shop, and then we're gonna remove the push rods. Now we're gonna use my special tool what I got from Clark's Corvan shop, and then the first time ever I'm gonna try to use it, see what happens. And it's perfect, and the oil is dripping, but I got the tube out very nicely. Here's the tube. There is a longer side and there's a shorter side. The shorter side goes towards the engine. The longer side goes towards the cylinder head. So now I gotta change the rings on it and then put it back on. I'm gonna go in with some paper towel and I'm gonna clean off those holes to make sure they're gonna accept the new seals very nicely. So as these ones. Now you can see this one was a little better, but I cleaned it up, and this one is the one which was really leaking. So I'm just gonna take these O-rings off and replace them with the nice new ones. That's the task. And then we can clean off the engine and the cylinder head where this one gonna sit. We're gonna put a little bit of oil on it, and then we're gonna push it back in. When you don't use the proper tools to change the gasket like I did, you see the little mark on it here and here. That's why they probably grabbed it with some sort of plier and tried to move it like this, and then it came out. So I cleaned off the grooves with the wire brush. I have one of these wire brushes what I used, and then I oiled up the O-rings. I have a bunch of new fashion O-rings, and then here's a little oil, and I oil them up. Just make sure when you do this your hands are supposed to be clean, because the dirt will come off your fingers and then it will go on the oil, and it's not really a good thing. So I cleaned out all the grooves with a paper towel, and then I put the oiled up rings back on, and then I'm gonna put a little bit more oil on it, and then I'm gonna slide it back on. When I was taking off the old O-rings, one side came off, but it was still brittle, and then the other side just cracked right away. So this is why it was leaking badly from these seals. Don't forget, you got to change these little O-rings here and two, and then clean up the surfaces. So which I just did. I just pulled those off. I also cleaned these knots or bolts or whatever you call it, what will go around that O-ring. I'm gonna oil this up also on the surface, so when it goes through the O-ring it wouldn't burn it. Here are the two little O-rings what came out. They're not all that brittle. You actually can squish them, so they're fine. But we're gonna put new one in. The manual says every time you move that you need to put a new one on. So here are the bunch what I'm gonna oil up and push them back on there. Please remember, I'm not a car mechanic. I'm an airline pilot. I have nothing to do with this. I just basically having fun doing this stuff, and I'm reading the manual as I go. I never actually had a Corvair before, so this is my first one. I'm really enjoying doing this. So if you don't take this as an advice. I'm just going through what I'm doing here. So before I put this in, I'm gonna have to find a socket which I will be able to make the whole push rod housing seat. As it turns out, this thing will not getting held in by anything in there. It just basically you push it in, it stays in there because it gets squished in there. But that push rod guide will not hold this in. So what I need to do is to find a proper socket, what I will put in here, and then actually able to tap it with a hammer a little bit and then make it all the way in and let it seat. So I'm all ready for this. The other little O-rings are in already, so let's put this in. I've cleaned out all the parts inside as well where this one will arrive. So first we're gonna make sure that longer one is outside, and then somehow we're gonna find the hole and push it through the hole. Let's see how to do this. Yeah, we're gonna have to push it through the hole from here. Yep, through one hole, and then we're gonna have to somehow guide it into the second hole and push it in as far as it goes by hand, and now we can start tapping it. So as you see, it's right there. Now we're gonna start putting this push rod in, but we wanna make sure that the little hole at the end is oriented correctly. So that little hole has to be outside to begin with. So we're gonna have to push it in all the way until it seats, and do the other one as well. So I got both of these little push rods in. Now let's go inside and read the book, what it shows, what it tells us which way to orient that little tiny little pinhole. So the reason why we read the manual to don't make mistakes, but I already see that I made a mistake. It clearly says that I'm supposed to put on the O-ring on the inner O-ring after I pushed it through the cylinder head. So this is what I did wrong. So I'm gonna do this at the other cylinders. Hopefully this O-ring didn't get hurt while I pushed it through. So it says first I gotta install the push rod guides, and it says chamfered side up under the valve cover stud shown in figure 6A. So that's the figure right there. And then using an anti-seize combine is install valve rocker studs using anti-seize compound. Install cylinder head flat washers and nuts on studs protruding through the cylinder head. So I guess at first I got to do this, and then it says torque cylinder head in sequence as shown in figure. Okay, so insert push rods with the .50 hole side of hole at the end of the push rod with the blue band. Okay, so basically it has to go on the outside. It doesn't matter which way. It says it's up to the cylinder head. So I guess that hole just has to go towards the outside of the engine. That's basically it. So I found the torque ratings. It's 27 to 33 foot-pounds. So we're gonna have to follow that. Now, based on that information, we're gonna remove the push rods, and then what I really want to do is to clean the inside of these studs, and then put a little bit of lock washer on it, and then we're going to tighten them down. That's the first thing, but the outside has to remain a little oily. Now that it's torqued down, now we can put the push rods through, being careful with the little pinhole side to be this side. As you see, it's got two sides. This one is for the push rod, obviously, because there's a big dent in it, and this one is for the valve. And then we got the washer in there to follow the curvature of this rocker arm. And then we can just put it up, and we're gonna tighten up until it's still loose. We don't want to over tighten it. I don't care where the camshaft is at the moment, but I didn't over tighten it, so it's still loose a little bit, both of them. So we're gonna go through the firing order, and then we're gonna set them up as the first stage, and then we're gonna run the engine and set them up at the second stage. So, but for now, this is all I wanted to do. I'm gonna do the rest of the cylinders on both sides just the same way I did now, that I actually know how to do this. At least I hope. And then we go from there once I'm done with all these. I'm super excited. I got the 5 tires for the Corvair, or the Corvan rather. I went to the Cooker Tire website, and they had a sale going on, so I got these tires fairly inexpensively. They're gonna have a little blue line in them, which I really don't mind, because at least it's gonna match with the car, the van. So I'm just gonna have to open it up. I took one of the rims off because that was the correct rim. I got two more rims with it. One was correct, one was not correct. I think the other one was for a Corvair car, but I'm not really sure. But so I got 2 perfectly good rims. The rest of the rims are not good, not for this van. So I need to find 3 more, and I think the Corvair farm has them. So right now I'm trying to buy them and get them shipped here. And then we're gonna have to sandblast them and powder coat them, and then we can put these nice new tires on. So I got most of them opened up. This is how it's gonna look like. I really like the little parts on the side, and then the way it looks like. And then this little blue line is not actually a white line with a blue paint on it. It's actually a real blue line, so that's how it's gonna remain. So it's not something I got to wash off and then it's gonna be white underneath. That's an actual blue line. Maybe that's why they couldn't sell it, because nobody wanted that. I don't know. But you can see there's the size of it, and then all these things are made in, I believe it's made in Chattanooga. So yeah, I think it's gonna work really well. I am currently doing the Kentucky two-step forward, 1 step back. So when I took this thing off of the next one, the H or U, whatever it is, the U, the letter U, what you see there, that's actually towards the engine, not towards the cylinder head or the outside. So yeah, when I put this one on, I made it actually go on like this, and that's the incorrect way. It's supposed to go on like that. So now I'm gonna do it the right way, and I'm gonna have to take these ones back up once this one is tightened to make sure you don't loosen up all the cylinder head. And then I gotta retorque the bolts or nuts, and then gotta have to re-glue them again with the thread lock. So if you ever work on one of these, make sure you observe where this little U is in the middle, and that's gonna go like this. So the U not gonna be visible when you look at it from the outside. I don't know how else to put it, but as you guys see, I already learned that I gonna push these tubes through without this little O-ring. So now I'm gonna install the O-ring and push them into position. Well, that was a battle, but I did it. I turned that plate around, and now the next problem is that this push rod doesn't really want to come out. So what I need to do at first, I need to move this one back, but I can't move it back until this plate will come. So I guess I'm gonna have to release these bolts and then somehow get this tube out, and then somehow get this one out with the tube together. We'll see how it's gonna work out. All right, so now hopefully they both can come out. If I would show it, oh yeah, there it is, and I can pull it out. Perfect. And now while I'm at it, I can change this temperature gauge. Like, this is the temperature sending unit. It's a little melted, so I'm just gonna put a new one in. It's hard to believe, but it's done. I did all the O-ring changes on it. So now I'm gonna turn the engine around, and then wherever the rotor points to, that cylinder will get a little adjustment on it. And then once it's all done, then we're gonna continue with putting on the shrouds, and then we go to the top of the engine. You can see all the old O-rings. Some of them were very brittle, and then on the last one, when they actually put it on, they kind of pinched it. So that's most likely why it was leaking, probably from the day they put that back together. But nonetheless, they all very brittle, and you can actually like break them. So it was about time to change these anyway. Looks like I learn as I go. So here's the shroud, and as I noticed, there are some numbers in it. So this is the 1, 2, then 3, 4, 5, 6 cylinders. The firing order is 1, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. That's not exactly a 6-cylinder firing order what I used to on the straight engines, but that's okay. Then here's a picture from the manual. I don't know how much you can see on it, but here's the distributor. Distributor is supposed to go rotate that way. So I got one of these really long ratchet wrenches. I think it's a 3/4, which I put on the main bolt on the crankshaft, and then I can turn it, and as it turns, I can set it up to show me where the number 1 ignition point is for the number 1 cylinder is, and then I can lift it up again and adjust the number 1 cylinder's rocker arms. I pulled out all the spark plugs, and basically I left them there, but they actually loose, so I can actually turn the engine. And now if you look at, I put the rotor back on, of course, and then I'm gonna put this distributor housing on it. And this is the number 1. The number 1 is this, and then it's pointing to the number 1. So therefore, the number 1 has to be on ignition. So let's go underneath and adjust the number 1. That's the right rear cylinder's rocker arm gap. It's incredible how much support comes out from Clark's Corvan parts. Even in this book, this parts catalog, what they have a technical section where they talk about just this, what I'm doing right now. So I think I'm just gonna follow what they say. I think they're a lot smarter than I am. They do it forever, and I just started. So we're gonna do at first this part, and then once the whole thing running, then this part. So it says first you want to make sure that it's not 180 degrees away. So I'll verify that this number 1 cylinder is actually on compression at the moment. And then over here there are the timing marks, so I'm gonna put this one exactly on 0. Let's see, going, see coming, the mark is coming, and then we're gonna go right on 0, and we're there. So we're in compression, and there is 0. So now we can go under the car, and it's got a little scratch help here, these little things here. So it says now we can go under, and then we can do, well, we're gonna read it. We suggest double check yourself, okay. And so just before you get to the top, the center turn crankshaft control, and set engine distributor firing number 1 cylinder and notch at 0 timing pad. So valve latch number 1, intake 1 exhaust, number 3 intake, number 5 exhaust on the right bank, and then number 4 and number 6 on the left bank. Just in case you haven't seen any Corvair before, these ones have hydraulic lifters, so I can't just really set the gap or the valve latch clearance. So I'm gonna have to go by what this book says. So first, this is the number 1. We're gonna adjust the intake and the exhaust. You can see that the The first one, that exhaust is very much misadjusted, and this one is just too tight. So we're gonna have to release from this and push in a little bit more on that. But the manual says that you got to just do it until you barely cannot actually move the push rod, and then half a turn. That's for the initial setup. Now we gotta go until the distributor is firing on number 2 cylinder and the crankshaft pulley notch is at a 0 on the timing pad. So now we're gonna keep turning the engine around. This is the number 2 cylinder. So here's the number 2 spark plug. Number 2 spark plug is about 180 degrees off from the cylinder 1. So we're gonna wanna make sure that this thing will point the other side. So we're gonna start moving it until we get to the other side, and this will show 0 again on the timing mark. Now you can see that this is points to a number 2 cylinder, and this is exactly on the 0 part here. So it's on the mark, timing mark, so it's 180 degrees off from the previous position. So let's go back on there and then continue with the other valve adjustments. Now we're gonna do those ones we missed. It says the number 3 exhaust, number 5 intake on the right bank, and number 2 intake, number 2 exhaust, number 4 intake, and number 6 is the exhaust on the left bank or the driver's side. So everything is done. So in order to adjust them while the engine is running, I'm gonna have to run the engine. So in order to run the engine, I gotta put it back together. So I'm gonna put the valve covers back on with the old gaskets, and then once those are in, then I'm gonna connect the choke thermostat to make sure the choke thermostat actually connect very nicely. So this right here, you need to be able to go across. I got to make sure they work well on both sides. This one has to go back on, and then I'm gonna clean and install the shrouds here, and then once it's all done in the bottom, then we're gonna go to the top and reassemble the engine on the top. I got the 3 missing rims from the Corvan wrench in Pennsylvania. Thank you very much. And then I'm gonna take them to the powder coating place. One is more rusted than the others, but that's okay. It will do. And on the van itself, I finally buckled it all up. So the bottom part is all finished. So now we can let it down and then start working on the top part. The only one problem I had is that one of these bolts stripped, and I'm gonna have to find a longer bolt into it. Hopefully have some thread left in it. If not, I'm gonna have to time insert it, but let's just first try to use a longer bolt. Hopefully it will hold it. Thanks for watching. The story doesn't end here, but we ran out of time. So next time we're gonna continue on. If you haven't seen the previous parts, I will leave the links in the description. See you guys next time. Bye.